On the altar of her billionaire wedding, with cameras broadcasting live to millions, her sister stood and announced she was carrying the groom's child. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Her billionaire fiancé went silent, a silence that looked like guilt to everyone watching. Months later, when Janice had lost everything, her reputation, her money, her sanity in the eyes of the world, her teenage niece appeared at her door with a phone full of recordings and three words that changed everything. It's all fake. In that moment, the truth about family, money, and betrayal finally began to surface. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back. If you're here, you're not just watching a story. You're part of something bigger. You're part of a community that refuses to let the truth stay buried, that stands with women who've been lied about, betrayed, and pushed aside by people they trusted most. Before we go any further, I want to speak a word over you. May God shield your home from hidden enemies. May He expose every lie spoken against you before it takes root. May He bless your finances, protect your children, and strengthen your marriage against those who smile to your face while plotting behind your back. And may He give you the courage to walk away from anyone, no matter how close, who treats your heart like a weapon to be used against you. You are not alone. You are seen. You are loved, and your story matters. If this message speaks to you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you called family, show me you're standing with Janice. Like this video. Share it. Let the world know we don't stay silent when the truth is on the line. And subscribe to the Penthouse Diaries for more stories. Now let's go back to that moment, the moment everything shattered. The last thing Janice felt before her world ended was the weight of her dress. It had seemed so light that morning when the stylist fastened the final clasp. Thousands of dollars worth of silk and crystal beading, custom designed to fit her like a dream. But now, standing in the cathedral ballroom with 500 guests watching and cameras streaming her wedding to millions more, the gown felt like it was dragging her to the floor. The chandeliers above threw fractured light across the marble aisle. Paparazzi lenses glinted like predators' eyes from the edges of the room. The exclusive live-stream deal Nathan's PR team had negotiated with a major network meant to humanize the billionaire CEO and boost his company's image. Janice's heart hammered against her ribs as she moved toward Nathan. Billionaire Nathan Lawrence, her Nathan, standing at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He wasn't smiling. That should have been her first warning. Nathan always smiled when he looked at her, but today his jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid, his gaze somewhere just past her left shoulder. She told herself it was nerves, told herself it was the pressure of having his entire corporate empire watching this ceremony, waiting to see if their CEO's fairy tale marriage would play out as promised. She was 3 steps from the altar when Amber stood up. Her sister, her own blood, wearing a cream-colored dress that suddenly seemed like a calculated choice, a mockery of bridal white. Amber's hand moved to rest on her stomach, a deliberate, unmistakable gesture. The room went silent, not the reverent hush of a wedding, but the airless quiet before a bomb detonates. "I need to say something," Amber's voice rang out, steady and clear, amplified by the cathedral acoustics and the microphones positioned throughout the room. "I'm so sorry, Janice. God knows I never wanted it to happen like this. But I can't let you marry him without knowing the truth." Janice's feet stopped moving. Her hands went numb around her bouquet of white orchids and peonies. "I'm 3 months pregnant," Amber continued, and every eye in the ballroom swung from her face to Nathan's. "And Nathan is the father." The words hit Janice like physical blows. 3 months. Nathan. Father. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The dress felt like it was crushing her lungs. She turned toward Nathan, desperately searching his face for fury, for denial, for anything that would prove this was insane. But Nathan just stood there. His face had gone white. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. But no sound came out, no outrage, no explanation, nothing. Just the terrible, damning silence of a man caught in a lie he couldn't talk his way out of. That silence confirmed everything. At least that's what Janice's shattering heart told her. "No!" The word ripped from her throat, raw and broken. "No, that's not Nathan. Tell them. Tell them she's lying." But Nathan still said nothing. His eyes were wide, glazed, locked on Amber as if he were seeing a ghost. Around them, the ballroom exploded into chaos. Gasps, shouts, the frantic clicking of cameras capturing every angle of Janice's humiliation. "You monster!" Janice screamed, and the words barely sounded like her own voice. "How could you? How could you do this to me?" She lunged toward Amber without thinking, without planning. The orchids scattered from her hands and skidded across the polished floor. Her fingers reached for Amber's face, her hair, anything she could hurt the way she'd just been hurt. Amber stumbled backward with a theatrical cry, her hands still protectively curved over her stomach. "Janice, please! The baby!" Hands grabbed Janice from behind. Nathan's groomsmen, his security team, someone strong enough to haul her back even as she thrashed and kicked. Her dress tore with a sickening sound. Beatings scattered like broken stars across the marble. "Get off me!" she screamed. "She's lying! She has to be lying!" But even as she said it, that poisonous doubt crept in. Nathan still hadn't spoken. He stood frozen at the altar, looking like a man watching his own execution, and his silence was the rope around all their necks. "Janice, sweetheart, you need to calm down." That was Elaine, her mother, suddenly appearing at Amber's side with perfect maternal concern. She helped Amber to her feet, checking her for injuries with such theatrical care that Janice wanted to vomit. "I know this is terrible, darling, but violence won't help anything." "Don't you dare," Janice snarled, still fighting against the hands holding her. "Don't you dare act like you care about me. Where were you when she was messing around with my fiancé?" "I didn't know," Elaine said softly, her voice carrying across the now silent ballroom. "Oh, sweetheart, if I'd known, I would have told you immediately. Amber only told me this morning. She was so frightened, so ashamed. But I convinced her you deserved to know the truth before making a terrible mistake." The way she said it, so reasonable, so kind, made Janice feel like she was losing her mind. Everything about this felt staged, impossible, wrong. But Nathan's silence kept hammering home the same message. It was true. All of it was true. "I need to leave." Janice's voice broke. "I need to get out of here." She wrenched free from the groomsmen and ran. Her torn dress tangled around her legs. Her heel caught on the hem and snapped. She kicked off both shoes and kept running, barefoot across the marble, past rows of staring guests, toward the massive cathedral doors. Behind her, Nathan finally spoke. "Janice, wait, please, let me explain." But she didn't stop, couldn't stop. If she stopped moving, she would shatter completely into a million irreparable pieces. And she refused to give them that satisfaction, refused to break in front of 500 witnesses and millions of streaming viewers. The sunlight outside hit her like a slap. The parking lot was decorated for celebration. Balloons tied to lampposts, a ridiculous "just married" banner, stretched between two trees, her car covered in ribbons and tin cans. The sight of it broke something inside her chest. Janice made it 5 more steps before her legs gave out. She collapsed on the hot asphalt between 2 parked cars, her ruined dress pooling around her like spilled milk. The concrete burned through the silk, but she couldn't make herself move, couldn't make herself do anything but sit there while her entire future dissolved into nothing. Footsteps pounded behind her, multiple people shouting her name, Nathan's voice loudest among them, desperate and raw. "Janice! Janice, please, you have to listen to me. I never touched her. I swear to God, I never touched her." But the words reached her through a thick fog. The parking lot started tilting. The sun became too bright, too hot, burning white holes through her vision. Someone was making a sound like an animal caught in a trap, and it took Janice a long, disorienting moment to realize the sound was coming from her own throat. Then the world went blessedly, mercifully black. She woke to whiteness. White walls, white sheets, white ceiling tiles with small holes that made patterns when she stared at them long enough. The antiseptic smell told her she was in a medical facility, though not the chaos of a public emergency room. This was somewhere private, controlled, expensive. Janice turned her head slowly, her neck stiff, and found a woman in elegant business attire sitting beside the bed. Not a nurse, not a doctor. Someone from Nathan's legal team, judging by the crisp folder in her lap and the careful, calculated sympathy in her eyes. Ms. Morgan, the woman said gently, I'm Rebecca Torres from Lawrence Enterprises Crisis Management Division. How are you feeling? What Janice didn't know, couldn't have known, was that Rebecca had been placed in this position by board members who answered to Nathan's competitors. Her job wasn't to help Janice, it was to contain her. How was she feeling? Janice opened her mouth to answer and found she had no words, no language adequate to describe the crater where her life used to be. The woman, Rebecca, leaned forward with practiced concern. The doctors want you to rest. You've been under tremendous stress, and we want to make sure you're properly cared for. Mr. Lawrence has arranged for you to stay here under observation for a few days, just to make certain you're emotionally and physically stable before you go home. Emotionally stable. The words hung in the air like a diagnosis, and somewhere in the fog of her broken heart, Janice felt the first cold finger of fear. This wasn't care. This was containment. This was how they would make her disappear. Emotionally stable. The words hung in the air like a diagnosis. Janice stared at Rebecca Torres, trying to process what she was hearing through the fog in her head. Where's Nathan? Mr. Lawrence is handling the immediate fallout, Rebecca said smoothly, opening the folder in her lap. The incident has generated significant media attention. We're working to protect everyone involved, including you. The incident, as if her sister announcing she was pregnant with Nathan's baby at their wedding, was just an unfortunate mishap. As if Janice's entire life hadn't just detonated in front of millions of people. I want to leave, Janice said, trying to sit up. The room tilted sickeningly. I want to go home. Soon, Rebecca assured her, placing a gentle but firm hand on Janice's shoulder, guiding her back down. But first, we need you to sign a few things. Standard confidentiality agreements. They'll protect your privacy during this difficult time. She produced papers from the folder, her pen already uncapped. These ensure that no one can exploit what happened today. No tell-all interviews, no unauthorized statements to the press. It protects you, Janice. Or silences me, Janice thought, but her head was too cloudy to argue. Everything felt wrapped in cotton wool. Had they given her something? She couldn't remember. A doctor appeared, young, soft-spoken, with the kind of professionally soothing voice that set Janice's teeth on edge. Ms. Morgan, I'm Dr. Patel, the staff psychiatrist. How are you feeling? Confused, Janice managed. Angry, betrayed. Take your pick. Understandable responses to acute emotional trauma, Dr. Patel said, making notes on a tablet. We're going to monitor you for a few days. Make sure you're eating, sleeping, processing this healthily. The stress you've experienced can have serious psychological consequences. A woman in expensive athleisure wear entered next, introducing herself as Monica, a wellness consultant specializing in high-profile emotional crises. She spoke in the practiced tones of someone who'd guided countless celebrities through scandals. What you're feeling is completely normal, Monica said, settling into the chair Rebecca had vacated. Shock, denial, rage. These are natural stages of grief. But it's important we help you through this in a way that doesn't compromise your future or your reputation further. As if Janice's reputation was the problem, not the fact that her sister and fiancé had apparently been carrying on behind her back for months. I need to make some calls, Janice said, reaching for where her phone should be. The bedside table was empty. Where's my phone? We're keeping it safe, Dr. Patel said gently. Right now you need rest, not social media or journalists bombarding you. Trust us, Ms. Morgan. The world outside is chaotic. In here, we can help you heal. But it didn't feel like healing. It felt like being erased. 3 days passed in a blur of medications, consultations, and papers she was too exhausted to fully read. Nathan never came. Rebecca visited daily with updates Janice barely absorbed. Something about managing the media narrative, protecting brand integrity, giving everyone space to breathe. On the 4th morning, Janice tried to order food delivery to the clinic. Her credit card was declined. She tried another. Declined. Then another. Declined. There must be some mistake, she told the automated customer service line, her hands starting to shake. I had over $10,000 available credit yesterday. Your account is under security review, the bored voice responded. You'll need to contact your bank directly during business hours. Your mother contacted us, Miss Morgan. As the emergency power of attorney you appointed after your father's death, she has placed a temporary freeze on the assets due to medical incapacitation. We are legally required to comply until you can prove competency. For your protection. The same phrase Dr. Patel used. The same phrase Rebecca used. Janice's stomach turned cold. She found her phone, finally, after demanding it repeatedly, and called the Nathan Lawrence Foundation, where she'd worked for 2 years managing scholarship programs. Her assistant, Keisha, answered with obvious discomfort. Janice, I'm so sorry about everything. Keisha, I need to know what's happening with my position. A long pause. You didn't get the email? HR sent it yesterday. You've been placed on administrative leave pending mental health clearance. The room seemed to tilt. Mental health clearance? Who authorized that? I don't know. It came from the executive level. I'm sorry, Janice. I really am. Janice ended the call, her heart pounding. This wasn't random. Someone was systematically cutting her off from money, from work, from any independence she had left. Elaine arrived that afternoon with flowers and tears. My darling girl, she said, embracing Janice with theatrical motherly concern. I've been so worried. They wouldn't let me see you until today. Janice stood rigid in her mother's arms, something in her refusing to soften. You knew, didn't you? About Amber and Nathan? Of course not, Elaine pulled back, wounded. Janice, how could you think that? I'm devastated, absolutely devastated. Amber won't even speak to me. She's hidden away somewhere, terrified you'll hurt her or the baby. The baby, always the baby, as if that phantom pregnancy was more real than Janice's destroyed life. I want to go home, Janice said flatly. Soon, Elaine promised, echoing everyone else. But sweetheart, we need to talk about practical matters. Your accounts, your inheritance from your father. Everything's so complicated right now. Let me help. I can manage things until you're feeling stronger. I'm feeling fine. Are you? Elaine's gaze was sharp beneath the maternal concern. Because the doctors say you're not sleeping. You're not eating. You tried to physically attack your pregnant sister at your own wedding, Janice. That's not fine. She destroyed my life. And that's exactly the kind of emotional volatility we're worried about, Elaine said softly. Let me handle the money just temporarily. I've already spoken with the bank and Nathan's legal team. We all agree it's best if someone stable manages your assets until you're in a better place mentally. Janice stared at her mother, really seeing her for the first time. The careful concern that never quite reached her eyes. The way she'd positioned herself between Janice and every door out of this trap. You planned this, Janice whispered. You and Amber. Don't be ridiculous. But Elaine's smile was cold now. Get some rest, darling. You're not thinking clearly. That night, Janice couldn't sleep. She stood at her door, listening to voices in the hallway. Dr. Patel and Elaine, speaking in low tones they assumed she couldn't hear. How long can we keep her here? Elaine asked. Legally, as long as she's a danger to herself or others. But Ms. Torres is concerned about optics. The longer Ms. Morgan is under observation, the more it looks like she really is unstable. She's a liability to Nathan's empire, Elaine said flatly. Everyone can see that. The best thing for everyone is if she signs over temporary guardianship and we can manage this quietly. A liability, not a daughter, not a victim, a liability. Janice backed away from the door, her heart racing. This wasn't about her mental health. This was about power and money and making sure she couldn't fight back. Nathan's empire had swallowed her whole, and her own mother was helping them digest her. She had to get out. Now, before they medicated her into compliance or had her declared incompetent. Before the trap closed completely and she disappeared into the category of emotionally unstable ex-fiancé that no one would ever believe or defend. Janice looked around the pristine white room, at the locked cabinets and the call button they wanted her to press whenever she felt distressed. She was done being managed, done being controlled. It was time to run. Janice left the clinic at 3 in the morning, walking out in borrowed scrubs and tennis shoes a sympathetic night nurse had quietly provided. The same nurse had slipped Janice her phone earlier that evening, retrieved from the lockbox behind the nurse's station. "They can't keep your property," she'd whispered. "That's not legal, whatever they told you." No dramatic escape, no alarms, just a woman slipping through an unlocked side door while the security guard scrolled through his phone. She had $200 in cash, everything she'd had in her purse from the wedding, her phone with its cracked screen, and a single contact who hadn't ghosted her since the scandal broke. Maya, her college roommate, met her 2 blocks away in a 15-year-old Honda, asking no questions. "There's a place," Janice said, rifling through the crumpled papers she'd grabbed from her apartment weeks ago, back when her life still made sense. "My father mentioned it once. A house on the coast. I think he left it to me." Maya glanced at her. "You think?" "I never paid attention to the estate paperwork. Elaine handled everything after he died." Janice's voice cracked. "I was so stupid." "You trusted your mother. That's not stupid." Maya squeezed her hand. "It's human." The address was barely legible on a decade-old property tax document. 4237 Saltwind Lane, 3 hours north along the coast. They drove in silence, the city lights fading behind them as the highway curved toward the sea. The house appeared just after dawn, hunched against the wind like something trying to disappear. Peeling gray paint, shutters hanging at broken angles, wild grass swallowing the stone path that led to a sagging porch. Behind it, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly, the sound of waves a steady, lonely rhythm. "This is it?" Maya asked doubtfully. Janice stepped out of the car, salt air stinging her face. "This is it." The front door was locked, but Janice remembered something her father had said when she was 12, showing her photos of this place she'd never visited. "If you ever need to disappear, Janice girl, you'll always know where home is. Third stone to the left of the steps. Don't tell your mother." She'd thought it was a joke, a game. Now, kneeling in the overgrown weeds, Janice lifted the third stone. Beneath it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a tarnished key. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. Inside smelled of salt and neglect. Furniture sat beneath dust-covered sheets like ghosts, but the structure was sound, the windows intact. Her father had kept the utilities running, she realized, when she flipped a light switch and a single bulb flickered to life. He'd kept this place ready, for her, just in case. "I'll be okay," Janice told Maya, though she wasn't sure she believed it. "Thank you for getting me here." Maya hugged her hard. "Call me when you can. And Janice, don't trust anyone from that world. Not until you know the truth." Janice waited until Maya's taillights disappeared before she began searching the house properly. She found blankets in a cedar chest, canned food in the pantry, dusty but still good, and in the bedroom that must have been her father's office, a locked desk drawer with her name carved faintly into the wood. The key from outside opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, unsent, unfinished, addressed to her in her father's careful handwriting. "Janice, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've finally seen what I always feared you'd see, that your mother doesn't love you the way a mother should. She loves what you can provide, what you can unlock. I tried to protect you. I structured your inheritance so Elaine can't touch it without your explicit consent. I put this house in your name alone. She doesn't even know it exists. But I'm afraid that won't be enough." Another letter dated 2 months before his death. "Elaine is grooming Amber to take everything I've built for you. I see it now. Every time Amber fails, Elaine bails her out. Every time you succeed, Elaine diminishes it. She's making Amber dependent and you competent so that when the time comes, she can use Amber to manipulate you and use you to fund Amber's life. I've tried to talk to you about this, but you defend her. You say I'm imagining things. Maybe I am. God, I hope I am." The last letter was unfinished, the pen stroke trailing off mid-sentence. "If you're reading this, you've been sacrificed. I'm sorry I couldn't stop it. But remember, you are not the easy one. You are not the pawn. You are my daughter, and you are stronger than they." The sentence ended there. He'd died 3 days later. "Heart attack," Elaine had said, "quick and painless." But now, reading his words, Janice wondered what else had been a lie. She spent the night reading by candlelight, memories reshaping themselves with every page. The time Elaine told her she was too sensitive after catching Amber stealing from her room. The college fund that mysteriously shrank because Amber needed rehab? Again. The way Elaine always positioned Amber as the victim and Janice as the one who should sacrifice more, give more, be more understanding. Not a family, a con, and she'd been the mark all along. When dawn broke over the water, Janice made a decision. She would stay here, hidden and anonymous, until she was strong enough to understand what had really happened at that wedding. Until she could figure out who was lying and who, if anyone, had told the truth. But somewhere out there, she knew, the world was already spinning a story without her. And once the narrative took hold, the truth wouldn't matter. She had to be smart. She had to be ready. Because they'd taken everything from her once, she wouldn't let them do it again. The coastal house had no television, but Janice's phone, once she finally turned it on, told her everything she needed to know about how the world had decided her story should end. The wedding disaster had gone viral. Of course it had. Billionaire groom, pregnant sister, violent bride. It was tabloid gold. Every major outlet had run the footage. Janice lunging at Amber, screaming accusations, her designer dress tearing as security dragged her away. In every clip, every screenshot, every slow-motion replay, Janice looked exactly like what they wanted her to be. Unhinged, jealous, dangerous. The headlines wrote themselves, Billionaire Bride's Violent Meltdown. Inside Janice Morgan's history of instability. Friends say she was obsessed with trapping Nathan Lawrence. Talk shows dissected her psychology. A celebrity therapist who'd never met Janice explained how some women become so desperate to secure wealthy partners that they mentally unravel when reality intrudes. Influencers made reaction videos, most sympathizing with Amber. Can you imagine being pregnant and having your own sister attack you? Even the few who questioned Amber's timing were drowned out by the dominant narrative. Janice Morgan was unstable, possibly abusive, and Nathan Lawrence had dodged a bullet. One viral tweet captured it perfectly. That silence at the altar? That was a man realizing he'd been manipulated into marrying a psychopath. Janice hurled her phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack, the screen splintering into a web of fractures. She'd have to tape it together later. It was the only connection to the outside world she had left. 3 days later, the legal assault began. News broke that Amber had retained Marcus Holt, a celebrity attorney famous for representing actresses in high-profile divorces and harassment cases. His press conference was slick and devastating. My client, Amber Morgan, is a victim of circumstances she never chose, Holt announced from the steps of his downtown office. Amber beside him in tasteful maternity wear, tears streaming down her face. She's carrying Nathan Lawrence's child, a child conceived during a brief but meaningful relationship before Mr. Lawrence became engaged to her sister. She kept silent out of love for her family. But after being physically attacked while pregnant, she has no choice but to seek protection and accountability. The civil claim named Nathan's conglomerate for emotional damages and child support, demanding $15 million. Leaked excerpts suggested Amber possessed intimate communications, proving Nathan had pursued her first, and documentation of Janice Morgan's threatening behavior that would be made public if necessary. It was blackmail dressed as justice, and the media ate it up. The legal notice arrived by courier on a gray morning, slipped under the door of the coastal house. Petition for emergency financial guardianship. In the matter of Janice Marie Morgan, Elaine was moving to take control of everything. The inheritance from Janice's father, her investment accounts, even her personal property. The grounds cited documented history of emotional instability, violent outbursts, and inability to manage personal affairs. Attached were therapy notes from a counselor Janice had seen twice after her father died, selectively quoted to paint her as depressed and volatile. Videos of old arguments, one where she'd yelled at Elaine about Amber borrowing money, another where she'd slammed a door during a fight, edited to remove all context, making her look unhinged. Most damning was a psychiatric evaluation she'd never consented to, signed by Dr. Patel from the clinic, recommending ongoing supervision of financial decisions during this acute crisis. Janice read it 3 times, her hands shaking. They'd built a paper trail. While she'd been grieving, recovering, trusting, they'd been documenting, building a cage of legitimacy around their lies. She tried calling other friends, people from college, former colleagues she'd trusted. But outside of Maya, the silence was deafening. Half the numbers went to voicemail. The rest offered awkward sympathy before quickly ending the call. "I just don't think I can be involved right now," one former colleague admitted. "HR said anyone associated with you might face questions about judgment." "I have a family, Janice. I'm sorry." One by one, her connections severed. No one wanted to stand beside someone labeled dangerous and unstable. No one wanted to risk being pulled into her gravity. Janice drafted statements defending herself, but every version sounded exactly like what a paranoid, jealous woman would say. "My sister is lying. My mother is stealing from me. Please believe me, not the pregnant victim everyone sympathizes with." It was hopeless. Late that night, Janice heard footsteps on the porch. She grabbed the only weapon she had, a rusted poker from the fireplace, and crept to the window. A figure moved in the darkness, setting something down, then disappearing into the night without knocking. She waited 10 minutes before opening the door. On the porch sat 2 bags of groceries, fresh food, not canned goods, and a red gasoline can. No delivery receipt, no company logo. Just supplies appearing like a miracle. And tucked beneath the bread, a folded piece of paper with 3 words in handwriting she recognized. "You're not alone." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Nathan had found her. Later, she would learn that Maya had called him, terrified for Janice's safety, and unable to keep her location secret from the one person still fighting for her. Maya had given him the address and made him promise to keep his distance until Janice was ready. The black SUV appeared at dawn, parked at the edge of the property where the dirt road met wild grass. Janice saw it from the kitchen window and felt her heart lurch. She knew that vehicle, knew who sat inside, close enough to watch over her, but far enough to honor the distance she demanded with her silence. Nathan didn't approach. He never did. Instead, a man in tactical gear walked up the path, broad-shouldered, professional, carrying himself like former military. He stopped at a respectful distance from the porch. "Ms. Morgan, my name is Bruce Reed. I'm Mr. Lawrence's head of security. He asked me to check that you're safe and have what you need." "Tell him to leave me alone," Janice said through the screen door. "I will, but he wanted you to know he's not going anywhere. And if you need anything, anything at all, you just have to say the word." Reed left a card with a single phone number, then returned to the SUV. It stayed there all day. By evening, it was gone. But the next morning, Janice woke to the sound of hammering. Workers, silent, efficient, were on her roof, replacing broken shingles. By noon, they'd fixed the sagging porch steps, cleared the overgrown path, and restocked the propane tank. None of them asked her permission. None of them even looked at her directly. When they left, there were groceries in the cooler on the porch. Fresh vegetables, bread, eggs, milk. And another note: "You deserve to be taken care of. Even if you hate me." Janice crumpled it and threw it in the trash, then retrieved it an hour later and smoothed it flat on the kitchen table. The days blurred into a strange rhythm. Nathan's SUV appeared and disappeared. Supplies materialized. Her roof no longer leaked when it rained. Janice told herself she despised it. This billionaire swooping in like he could fix everything with money and construction crews. But late at night, eating the food he'd sent, sleeping under a roof he'd repaired, she felt something more complicated than hate. She remembered Nathan at her father's hospital bedside during those final weeks, reading to him when Janice was too exhausted to speak. Nathan quietly funding scholarships in her father's name without ever putting his own name on them. Nathan working until 2 in the morning on foundation reports because he refused to let his charitable work be performative. How did that man become the villain in this story? Or had he never been the villain at all? But then she'd remember his silence at the altar, that endless silence when she'd begged him to deny Amber's accusation, and the anger would flood back, hot and righteous. She ignored his calls, deleted his texts unread, threw away his notes after scanning them for information. Yet she kept living off his care, kept accepting his protection. Hypocrite, she told herself. Coward. The nausea started subtly. A queasy morning she blamed on stress, then another. Then dizziness that left her gripping the counter, breathing hard. She'd missed her cycle, but that was stress too, wasn't it? Women missed periods all the time when their lives imploded. 3 weeks after arriving at the coastal house, Janice collapsed on the bathroom floor, heaving into the toilet with nothing left to give. The room spun, her vision grayed at the edges. She heard the front door open. Bruce Reed, checking on her like he did most mornings. "Ms. Morgan?" His voice sharp with concern. "I'm coming in." "Don't—" But she couldn't finish the sentence before another wave of nausea hit. Reed called someone immediately. Janice heard him speaking in clipped tones. "Get Dr. Ahmadi out here. Now. I don't care what she's doing." "I don't need a doctor," Janice managed weakly. "With respect, ma'am, you're white as a sheet and you can't stand up. I'm calling a doctor." She wanted to argue, but the truth was she couldn't stand. Could barely think through the fog in her head. Dr. Sarah Ahmadi arrived within the hour, a calm, competent woman in her 50s who examined Janice with professional efficiency. "When was your last period?" she asked gently. Janice had to think. I don't know. 8 weeks? Maybe 9? Dr. Ahmadi's expression shifted, not surprised but knowing. "And the nausea, how long?" "A couple of weeks. I thought it was stress." "It might be." Dr. Ahmadi pulled out a small test kit. "But let's rule out other possibilities first." 20 minutes later, Janice sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the test in the doctor's hand. 2 lines. Unmistakable. "You're pregnant," Dr. Ahmadi said softly. "Based on your symptoms and timeline, I'd estimate 6 to 7 weeks along." 6 to 7 weeks. Janice did the math automatically, her mind racing back. That would mean conception happened. The week before their wedding, Nathan had surprised her at her apartment with takeout and champagne, insisting they have a few quiet evenings alone before the chaos of the ceremony consumed them. They'd talked until midnight, laughed until they cried, held each other like the world beyond those walls didn't exist. Days before Amber's announcement destroyed everything. "Ms. Morgan?" Dr. Ahmadi touched her shoulder gently. "Are you all right?" Was she? Janice's hand moved to her stomach instinctively. A baby. Nathan's baby. Real and growing while Amber's supposed pregnancy became the weapon that tore them apart. "Does he know?" Janice whispered. "Does Nathan know you're here?" "He sent me, but he doesn't know why I was needed." Outside, through the window, Janice could see the black SUV. Nathan sat in the driver's seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house like he could will himself to know what was happening inside. Dr. Ahmadi packed her things quietly. "Do you want me to tell him?" "No." Janice's voice cracked. "No, I need time." The doctor nodded and left. Janice stood at the window, one hand pressed against her still flat stomach, watching the man she'd loved, might still love despite everything, wait for news he wouldn't receive. This baby changed everything, made every decision more complicated, every emotion more desperate, and she had no idea what to do next. Janice told him on a gray morning, with the ocean churning behind them and Bruce Reed standing at a careful distance. Nathan had been bringing coffee, leaving it on the porch rail every dawn for a week. When she finally opened the door and said, "We need to talk," his face transformed with desperate hope. "Janice, I'm pregnant." She said it flatly, without emotion, watching hope shift into something more complicated. 7 weeks, Dr. Ahmadi confirmed it. Nathan went very still. She could see him calculating, remembering. "That last week before the wedding, when I brought dinner to your apartment." "Yes." "Janice," his voice cracked. It means I need complete transparency from you. Not for me, for this baby. I don't forgive you. I don't even know if I believe you. But our child deserves better than the war zone we're living in." Nathan's hands shook as he pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. "Think about what Amber claimed, that she was 3 months pregnant at the wedding. 12 weeks. That means she supposedly conceived around mid-March. He looked up, eyes intense. Janice, I was in Singapore for the entire month of March. The merger negotiations. I wasn't even in the country when she claims this happened. I couldn't possibly be the father. She'd done the same math 100 times since Dr. Amati left. And now I'm pregnant. Really pregnant. With a baby conceived days before our wedding, when you were actually here with me. Exactly. Nathan's voice was raw. Amber's timeline is impossible. Mine is real. Or you're the father of neither, Janice said quietly. I never touched her. Nathan's voice broke. I swear on our baby's life, I never touched Amber. For the first time since the wedding, Janice almost believed him. Nathan's lawyers moved fast, filing formal requests for DNA testing and full medical documentation of Amber's pregnancy. Amber's response came through Marcus Holt's office within 24 hours. A letter from Dr. Richard Strauss, a supposed high-risk pregnancy specialist, declaring that any invasive testing posed unacceptable risk to both mother and fetus, given Amber's delicate condition. The letter was medical theater, all the right words, all the right concerns, perfectly designed to make Nathan and Janice look like monsters for even asking. The media devoured it. Janice Morgan demands dangerous tests on pregnant sister. Bitter ex-fiancé puts unborn baby at risk. Is Janice using her own pregnancy to compete? Talk show panels debated whether Janice's pregnancy was even real or just a desperate attempt to win Nathan back. Influencers questioned her motives. One viral thread suggested she'd gotten pregnant specifically to one-up Amber's announcement. She's carrying a baby while trying to force invasive medical procedures on another pregnant woman, a cable news commentator declared. That's not someone seeking truth. That's someone consumed by jealousy. Even Nathan's supporters began questioning his judgment in defending her. The financial pressure intensified daily. Elaine filed an amended petition, citing Janice's pregnancy as additional proof of instability. Subject is now pregnant and alone, demonstrating continued inability to make sound personal decisions. Her emotional state presents clear danger to herself and her unborn child. The document painted Janice as an unfit mother before the baby was even born, using her isolation and Nathan's continued involvement as evidence of poor judgment. Meanwhile, Nathan's company hemorrhaged value. Stock prices dipped as investors grew nervous about the ongoing scandal. Board members leaked concerns about Nathan's personal distractions affecting business operations. Major sponsors quietly pulled funding from the Lawrence Foundation. 3 executive team members resigned, citing differences in vision, corporate speak for abandoning a sinking ship. Nathan's lawyer called with an update. Janice could hear the exhaustion in his voice even through the phone. They're strangling us from every angle. The longer this drags out, the more damage it does to everyone involved. Except Amber and Elaine, Janice said bitterly. They're winning. For now. But Nathan's jaw tightened. There's something else bothering me. Have you noticed the timing of all this? My stock price has dropped 18% since the wedding. 3 of my biggest competitors have been circling, trying to poach clients. Sometimes I wonder if this is about more than just money for me, if someone else is pulling strings. The court order arrived by courier on a Wednesday, mandatory mediation scheduled for the following week. All parties required to attend: Nathan Lawrence, Janice Morgan, Amber Morgan, and Elaine Morgan as Amber's representative. The stated purpose: resolution of paternity questions and related civil claims. The real purpose, Janice knew, was to force a settlement, to make Nathan pay Amber to go away, to make Janice sign away her inheritance to Elaine, to clean up the mess with money and legal documents so everyone could move on. Everyone except Janice, who would be left with nothing but a baby and a ruined name. She won't show, Nathan said when Janice told him about the mediation. Amber won't risk being in the same room where we can demand real answers. Then she loses her lawsuit. Holt won't let that happen, which means she'll come up with another excuse, another delay. Nathan's frustration was palpable. Another medical emergency right before we get anywhere near the truth. Janice pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling nothing yet but knowing life was growing there anyway. Then we need to be ready. Whatever she does, whatever Elaine does, we need to be 3 steps ahead. But how did you fight people who'd been planning your destruction since before you even knew there was a war. The mediation was set for next Tuesday, 6 days to prepare for a confrontation that would either expose the truth or bury Janice forever. She had no idea which way it would go, but she knew she had to survive it, for the child who was depending on her, whether they knew it yet or not. The email arrived at 6 p.m. on Monday, 12 hours before mediation was scheduled to begin. Marcus Holt's office had sent it simultaneously to Nathan's legal team, the mediator, and the press. Ms. Amber Morgan experienced severe complications this afternoon and was rushed to emergency care. Doctors report she nearly miscarried and remains under observation. All proceedings are postponed indefinitely. Any further attempts to force Ms. Morgan into stressful legal confrontations will be met with appropriate action. Attached was a photo of Amber in a hospital bed, IV in her arm, looking pale and devastated. Janice read it 3 times, her hands shaking. Another delay, another convenient medical crisis at the exact moment truth might surface. The media reaction was instant and brutal. Janice Morgan's vendetta endangers unborn baby. Pregnant sister fighting for her life after harassment. Experts, stress from legal battle could have caused miscarriage. The narrative had flipped completely. Janice wasn't a victim seeking answers. She was a vindictive monster tormenting a grieving almost mother. She sat alone in the darkening coastal house, one hand on her own growing belly, and seriously considered surrender. What was she fighting for anymore? Her reputation was destroyed. Her money was frozen. Her mother had weaponized the legal system against her. Friends had abandoned her. The world had decided she was the villain. Maybe it would be easier to just disappear. Sign whatever papers Elaine wanted. Let Nathan pay Amber whatever she demanded. Take her baby somewhere quiet and anonymous and build a small, invisible life where no one knew her name. She was drafting the surrender email when headlights swept across the window. Nathan burst through the door moments later, wild-eyed and furious. "Don't you dare! How did you—" "Bruce saw you starting to type. He called me." Nathan crossed the room in 3 strides. "Janice, if you give up now, the lie becomes truth. Forever. Our child will grow up believing their father cheated, that their mother was unstable, that their family was built on betrayal. Maybe that's better than growing up in this war zone." "No." Nathan's voice was steel. "No, it's not. We find another way. We keep fighting until—" A frantic pounding on the door cut him off. They both froze. It was past 9 p.m. No one knew Janice was here except Nathan's team. The pounding came again, desperate and uneven. Janice opened the door. Julia stood on the porch, 15 years old, disheveled, mascara streaked down her face. She clutched a backpack to her chest with white-knuckled hands and a phone in the other. "Aunt Janice," her voice shook. "I need to tell you something. I need to tell you everything." They sat at the kitchen table, Julia trembling, Janice stunned, Nathan standing in the doorway like he was afraid to move and shatter whatever confession was coming. "How did you even find this place?" Janice asked. "I overheard Grandma on the phone with her lawyer, screaming about Nathan's security team protecting you at some coastal property. She was trying to find the address. I searched property records under your father's name until I found something that wasn't in Grandma's files." Julia's voice cracked. "I took a Greyhound bus as far as the nearest depot, then walked the last 5 miles in the dark. I didn't know where else to go. I ran away," Julia said, "from Grandma Elaine's house. She doesn't know I'm here. No one does." "Julia, what's going on?" Janice reached for her niece's hand. "Mom's not pregnant." The words tumbled out in a rush. "She was never pregnant. It's all fake. The ultrasound, the doctor's notes, everything. I've been recording her and Grandma for months. I have proof." The room went silent except for the sound of waves outside. "What?" Janice whispered. Julia's hands shook as she opened her phone, pulling up folders and files. "I started recording after I heard them planning it, back in February. Mom was on the phone with someone, laughing about how easy it would be to blow up a billionaire wedding and force a payout. I thought she was joking. Then I heard Grandma helping her rehearse. She swiped through screenshots, text messages between Amber and someone named Dr. S about borrowing ultrasound images, voice memos of Elaine coaching Amber on how to cry on cue. Bank records showing payments to Marcus Holt weeks before the wedding even happened. They planned everything, Julia said, tears streaming now. The announcement, the timing, even Mom's cream-colored dress. Grandma said it had to look almost bridal to make the cameras go crazy. And the miscarriage scare today? That was scheduled. She's not even in a real hospital. She's at some spa resort that Dr. Strauss owns. Janice couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. Nathan moved closer, his voice carefully controlled. Julia, why didn't you say anything before? And why were you recording them? I started recording because I was scared. Julia's voice cracked with shame. Mom has turned on people before. Friends, boyfriends, even Grandma once. I wanted proof in case she ever turned on me. Insurance, I guess. But then she promised me things. A new life, travel, college at whatever school I wanted. She said we'd finally have money, that we'd never have to beg Grandma for anything again. And I wanted to believe her. I thought Aunt Janice would be okay, that she'd just move on and we'd all be fine. But, Janice prompted gently, but then I saw what they did to you, the clinic, the legal stuff, Grandma trying to take everything. And when I heard you were pregnant, Julia sobbed, you're having a real baby, a real family, and they were destroying you with a fake one. I can't let that happen. She pushed the phone across the table toward Janice. It's all backed up, everything. On the cloud, on 3 different email accounts. They can't delete it even if they find out I copied it. Nathan was already moving, making calls. I'm getting my legal team here now, and security. Julia, you did the right thing. Did I? Julia looked at Janice with desperate, frightened eyes. That's my mom, my grandma. I just destroyed my whole family. Janice pulled her niece into her arms, holding her while she shook. No, sweetheart, you didn't destroy your family. You told the truth. That's the bravest thing anyone can do. Over Julia's head, Janice met Nathan's eyes. In them, she saw the same thing she felt: vindication, fury, and the terrible weight of knowing that the real battle was just beginning, because now they had the truth, and the truth was going to burn everything down. Julia's hands trembled as she queued up the first recording. This one is from March, 2 months before the wedding. She pressed play. Amber's voice filled the kitchen, tinny through the phone speaker, but unmistakable. God, it's almost too easy. Nathan won't say a word at the altar. He's too well trained by his lawyers. And Janice, she'll completely fall apart. She always does. Elaine's laugh came next, warm and conspiratorial. The easy one to sacrifice. That's what her father used to worry about, that she'd never see us coming. Well, he was right. Amber again, gleeful. She'll be so destroyed she won't even think to ask for proof. And by the time she does, we'll have everything locked down. Janice felt like she'd been punched. That was her mother's voice, her sister's voice, talking about her destruction like it was a game. Julia swiped to another file. This one's about the wedding day. Remember, you have to cry. Elaine's voice coaching. Not too much. You don't want to look hysterical. Just enough to seem heartbroken and brave. And keep your hand on your stomach. The cameras need that visual. What if she tries to hit me? Even better. We'll have her arrested. Or committed. Either way, she's out of the picture, and Nathan pays to make the scandal go away. Another recording. Amber on the phone with someone. No, we're not doing an actual paternity test. We'll get letters from Dr. Strauss saying it's too dangerous. By the time anyone realizes there's no baby, we'll have the settlement and I'll fake a miscarriage. Blame it on stress from Janice's harassment. And another, Elaine, cold and calculated. The beauty is, once we have her declared mentally unfit, everything her father left her comes under my control. The house, the investments, all of it. She'll have nothing. Each recording was a knife, each one twisted deeper. But the worst came last. Amber and Elaine together, their voices overlapping in shared triumph. How easy is it to control a billionaire when he's terrified of scandal? And how easy is it to destroy a woman when everyone already thinks she's unstable? Janice never stood a chance. The recording ended. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Janice couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She'd known they'd betrayed her, but hearing them laugh about it, plan it, savor it, shattered something fundamental inside her. I never touched her? Nathan's voice was wrecked. All this time you thought They made me think it. Janice's fury finally found its target. You stood there silent while she destroyed me. I know. Nathan's face twisted. I know. My lawyers drilled it into me for years. Never speak in a crisis without counsel. Never give the media ammunition. When Amber made that accusation, I froze. I couldn't process it. And by the time I could think, you were already gone, and the damage was done. Your silence looked like guilt. I know. His voice broke. God, Janice, I know. I failed you. I should have shouted her down. Should have fought harder. Should have found you sooner. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Janice looked at him, really looked, and saw the truth she'd been too hurt to see before. He hadn't betrayed her. He'd been weaponized against her just like she had. I hated you, she whispered. I hated you more than I hated them. And they were the ones who raised me to be sacrificed. You didn't know. I should have known. My father tried to warn me. He left me letters, protection, a house they couldn't touch, and I ignored all of it because I wanted to believe my mother loved me. She pressed her palms against her eyes, tears finally breaking through. I believed I was small, powerless, easy to destroy, but I wasn't. They just made me believe I was. Nathan moved closer, cautious. We were both played. They studied us, found our weaknesses, and used them perfectly. What do we do now? We stop playing their game. Nathan's voice hardened with purpose. We go to prosecutors, regulators. We bypass PR and media spin and go straight to law enforcement. This isn't just fraud. It's extortion, conspiracy, attempted theft. Julia looked up, tears on her face. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. You're 15, Janice said gently. That's your mother. She stopped being my mother when she used me as part of her con. Julia's voice was small but steady. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Nathan made calls through the night. Lawyers, federal investigators, forensic accountants who could trace Elaine's financial manipulation. As dawn broke over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Janice felt it, a flutter, barely there, like butterfly wings against her ribs. The baby, moving for the first time. She gasped, her hand flying to her stomach. Nathan looked over, saw her face, and understood. Life, Janice whispered. In the middle of all this death and lies, there's life. Nathan placed his hand carefully beside hers. Then we fight, for that life, for the truth. Janice nodded, watching the sun rise over the water. They'd been broken, betrayed, nearly destroyed, but they were still standing. And now, finally, they knew exactly who the enemy was. The federal investigators moved with surgical precision. Within 48 hours of receiving Julia's recordings, they'd frozen Elaine's accounts and issued subpoenas for medical records, bank statements, and communications. By the end of the week, Dr. Richard Strauss, the high-risk pregnancy specialist, was being questioned about falsified medical documents and his financial ties to Elaine. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Federal investigation launched into alleged pregnancy fraud scheme. For the first time in months, public sympathy began to shift. Social media erupted with apologies to Janice. Think pieces re-evaluated the unstable bride narrative. Former critics quietly deleted their condemning posts. The influencers who'd built content around mocking Janice suddenly pivoted to supporting her. It was vindicating. It was infuriating. It was too late to undo the damage. But at least the truth was finally surfacing. The indictments came in late January. Elaine Morgan and Amber Morgan were charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, identity theft, and falsification of medical records. Julia was placed under temporary protective supervision, staying at the coastal house with Janice while Nathan arranged round-the-clock security. The girl who'd once been promised a glamorous life now slept in a small bedroom overlooking the sea, studying for her GED and preparing to testify against her own family. The trial began in March, just as Janice entered her final month of pregnancy. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the halls, Not allowed inside, but capturing every arrival, every break, every exhausted face emerging from the proceedings. The prosecution played Julia's recordings. The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Amber's voice described choreographing the wedding disaster. As Elaine laughed about sacrificing the easy one, expert witnesses testified about the forged ultrasound images, stock photos purchased online and doctored with fake patient information. About the manipulated videos of Janice's episodes, showing how strategic editing had removed all context to make normal frustration look like dangerous volatility. The paper trail was devastating. Bank records showed Elaine had been receiving payments from Nathan's business competitors, people who'd benefit from destabilizing the Lawrence empire. Email chains revealed discussions about leveraging the wedding for maximum financial and reputational damage. This wasn't just a family betrayal. It was calculated corporate sabotage. Julia took the stand on a brisk March morning, looking impossibly young in a simple blue dress. "My mother practiced," she testified, her voice steady despite the trembling hands in her lap. "She stood in front of the mirror and rehearsed being pregnant, how to hold her stomach, how to cry without ruining her makeup. She taught me to cry on cue, too, in case she needed me to look sad for cameras." Defense attorneys tried to rattle her, suggesting she'd been coached by Janice or Nathan. Julia held firm. "No one told me what to say. I'm telling you what I heard, what I saw, what I recorded, because even at 15, I knew something was horribly wrong." The jury's faces said everything. The verdicts came in mid-March. Elaine Morgan, guilty on all counts. The judge handed down 8 years in federal prison, citing calculated cruelty and extensive premeditation. Amber Morgan accepted a plea deal, 3 years in exchange for full cooperation and formal relinquishment of parental rights. Julia would remain in Janice's legal guardianship. In the courtroom, Amber looked small and broken. Nothing like the confident sister who'd stood at that wedding. She met Janice's eyes once across the room, and Janice saw something there that might have been regret. But it was too late for regret, too late for apologies. Some fractures never fully heal. The vindication came with costs no one discussed in the headlines. Nathan's board, citing sustained reputational impact, forced him to step back from several public-facing roles. He agreed without fighting. Family mattered more than titles. Janice regained control of her inheritance, her accounts, her legal identity. The court formally declared the mental health petitions fraudulent. Her name was cleared. The Lawrence Foundation offered her position back with a formal apology, but she declined. She had other plans for her future now, but the scars remained. The months of being called unstable, dangerous, jealous. They'd carved grooves in her soul that vindication couldn't erase. She'd won, but winning felt less like triumph and more like survival. The final hearing was procedural, closing out remaining motions, formalizing Julia's guardianship, finalizing asset seizures. Janice, now days past her due date, sat in the back of the courtroom, one hand pressed to her enormous belly. The judge was mid-sentence when Janice felt it, a tightening, sharp and unmistakable, radiating from her back to her abdomen. She gripped the bench, breathing through it. Nathan noticed immediately. "Janice, I think..." Another contraction, stronger. "I think it's time." They slipped out as quietly as a massively pregnant woman could manage. Behind them, the judge's voice echoed through the courthouse. "And this court finds that justice, though delayed, has been served. Justice and new life arriving in the same moment." As they pushed through the courthouse doors into the bright spring sunlight, Janice felt both. The weight of what she'd survived and the promise of what was coming. Her baby, their baby, the life they'd fought for. And finally, they were free. 3 months after the trial, Janice stood in the kitchen of the coastal house, watching Julia teach the baby to clap. "Come on, Sophie," Julia cooed, demonstrating again. "Like this. Clap, clap, clap." Sophie, with Nathan's dark eyes and Janice's stubborn chin, waved her tiny hands in approximately the right direction and promptly stuck them in her mouth instead. Julia laughed, the sound still somewhat fragile but genuine. Real laughter was coming easier now, though the nightmares about testifying against her mother still woke her some nights. "You're getting closer," Janice said, settling into the chair beside them with her coffee. "Last week she just stared at you like you'd lost your mind." "Because I probably have." But Julia smiled, lifting Sophie into her arms with practiced ease. "Lost my mind and gained a really weird little sister." They didn't talk about Amber much, or Elaine. Some wounds needed time more than words. Nathan emerged from his office, the converted sunroom with ocean views, looking tired but content. He'd rebuilt his role at the company from a distance, focusing more on foundation work than corporate empire building. The board had their public faces. Nathan had his family. It was enough. More than enough. "I've been thinking," Janice said one morning in late May, watching the spring fog roll across the beach, "about what we never got to do." Nathan knew immediately. The wedding. Not like before. No cathedral, no cameras, no... She gestured vaguely. "Spectacle. What do you want?" "This." Janice looked around the weathered house, at Julia feeding Sophie in the high chair, at the wild grass and endless ocean. "Just this. Just us." Nathan smiled. "Then let's do it." They held the ceremony on a Saturday afternoon when the June wind was warm and the tide was out. 20 people came, Maya and a handful of friends who'd stood by them. Bruce Reed and Dr. Ahmadi, Nathan's lawyer who'd become more friend than counsel, and Julia holding Sophie, standing as Janice's maid of honor. There was no aisle. Just a space marked out in sand with driftwood and wildflowers Julia had collected that morning. Janice wore a simple white dress, cotton, not silk, bought at a boutique in town for $200. Her feet were bare. Her hair blew loose in the wind. As she walked toward Nathan across the sand, she thought about the last time. The crystal ballroom, the designer gown that had cost more than some people's cars, the cameras, the pressure, the performance. This was smaller, quieter, infinitely more terrifying because it was real. Nathan took her hands and she saw everything in his face. The fear, the hope, the determination to get it right this time. The officiant, a retired judge who owed Nathan's foundation a favor, smiled warmly. "I understand you've written your own vows." Nathan went first. "I can't promise perfection. Can't promise I won't freeze when I should speak, or make decisions that prioritize business over us. I've already failed you in ways I'll spend my life trying to make right." His voice roughened. "But I promise to choose you, every day, even when it's hard, even when the world has opinions. I promise to tell the truth, even when silence would be easier. And I promise that our family, you, Sophie, Julia, will always matter more than money, more than reputation, more than anything I could build or lose." Janice's turn. Her voice shook but held. "I can't promise I won't doubt. Can't promise the scars from what we survived won't show up in unexpected ways. I've learned that trust isn't something you give once. It's something you build every single day." She squeezed his hands. "But I promise to keep building, to choose honesty over silence, to protect what we have rather than what we're supposed to look like. And I promise that when I'm scared or hurt or angry, I'll say so, instead of letting the fear speak for me." They exchanged simple bands, no diamonds, just gold that would wear down over time, like love itself. "By the power vested in me," the judge said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Nathan kissed her as the wind caught Janice's dress, and Sophie squealed with delight. It wasn't the billionaire fairy tale. It was better. It was real. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Janice stood at the water's edge, watching Nathan build a sandcastle with Julia, while Sophie crawled between them, destroying their careful work with gleeful abandon. This was her family, not perfect, not glamorous. Scarred by betrayal and trauma and months of public warfare, but theirs, built on truth instead of lies, on choice instead of obligation. The cameras were gone. The world had moved on to other scandals, other stories. And here, in the quiet aftermath, they'd built something that would last. My beautiful family, Janice's story didn't end with justice in a courtroom or vindication in the headlines. It ended here, with a family choosing each other every single day, despite everything that tried to tear them apart. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't the fairy tale wedding. It's the marriage that survives after the cameras are gone, the family that rebuilds after betrayal, the woman who discovers she was never small or powerless. She was just surrounded by people who needed her to believe she was. If Janice's story touched you today, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever had to choose between comfortable lies and painful truth, I want you to know you are not alone. You are seen, and you are stronger than anyone who tried to make you small. Protect your heart, guard your home, and never let anyone, not family, not money, not fear, convince you to stay silent when the truth needs to be told. God bless you and keep you. Until we meet again.